from the BBC World Service in association with ABC and All India Radio. This is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to Stumped, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. I'm Alison Mitchell in London, where the pubs are starting to open, but the cricket pavilions aren't in the club game. Lockdown measures are easing, but during the week the government deemed it was safer to allow people to consume alcohol and trust them to stay socially distanced than allow a bowler, wicket-keeper and a few fielders to spread out across a massive green space. But it's been a really hot week here. I was up at Putney Heath just the other evening and the nets were in place. There was a bowler, a bowling machine and a batter in each. It was lovely to hear that sound of the cricket ball on the bat. And you've got to only hope that the clubs can get going. We'll have more on that in the show.
It's Jim Maxwell here in Sydney. Ali, you should have been down in Cornwall having a surf. I mean, the weather over there is fantastic. A bit warmer than Sydney at the moment. It's winter, but you wouldn't know it. You know, when it gets to 18 degrees in the middle of a winter's day, you can still get sunburnt. And we're even talking about the possibility of cricket. But everything's so uncertain. Victoria's back in lockdown because of a coronavirus outbreak, and so the story goes on. Maybe there's some more cheerful news about all that where you are, Charu.
Well, hi, Jim. Hello, everybody. This is Charu Sharma for All India Radio in Bangalore. I'm afraid not, though, Jim, because a bit like Victoria, Bangalore is going through some very strange and disturbing times where, on one hand, all the establishments that we've been allowed to open are struggling to gather some pace. But on the other hand, every day we hear in the papers and other media that we have a new record high in terms of the number of positive patients. So people are certainly very confused, and so is our golf club, sadly. To get a little personal here, our golf club shut 2 days ago because of one or two people turning positive after they'd played some golf about a week or so before. And the club is now very confused. So they've shut down, and we don't quite know when it's going to open again. But we're following all the protocols. So there are a lot of tough questions and no easy answers here. The government sort of once again toying with shutting the city or, I suppose, parts of the state down. But having opened it once, now that seems to not be the right answer either. So confusing times, but cricket certainly has not yet taken off in India.
Uncertainty is the word, isn't it? And when you talk about positive tests and things swaying one way or another, that's where we're going to start this week, because 10 members of the Pakistan men's squad named in the touring party to come to England have tested positive for COVID-19. Now, Pakistan are due to play 3 tests and 3 2020s against England in August. Have a listen to the chief executive of the Pakistan Cricket Board, Wasim Khan.
It's clearly not a great situation to be in. But what I will say is that what it shows is that these are young athletes, fit athletes, 10 of them, who have been tested positive for the coronavirus. There's a clear message for all the people in Pakistan, men, women, children, that please adhere to the government guidelines. Because if this can happen to fit young athletes like these Pakistani players, it can happen to anybody in Pakistan society.
Jim, Charu, we've seen from Novak Djokovic's tennis tour this week just how quickly the disease can spread between, well, anybody, but athletes in close proximity. And by all accounts, those tennis players were not socially distancing, parties and all sorts. Very different to the biosphere that has been created for the England cricketers, and that's where Mark Wood was speaking to the BBC from. But it is still, a clear reminder, isn't it, of what we're dealing with here and the need for constant testing and monitoring.
That's why we keep saying the world is full of uncertainty, and it's going to be for some time. And hopefully the cricketers can get into there. I want to see one of these biospheres.
Well, I'll be in it, Jim. I will be in it, so I'll be able to report from the biosphere in a couple of weeks' time. I'll give you a diary. How's that? I'll give you my own COVID-19 bubble diary as the test series gets going.
It's worth a column. It's worth a Stumped performance.
Yeah, well, you'll get one.
Yeah, look forward to that. The only point I want to make is, yes, the athletes have been tested positive in various sports, but thankfully, thank God, there's no fatality yet. So are we talking about an infection that may get to athletes, but because of their nature being sort of stronger and fitter, it's not going to lead to fatality, and that we should not be excessively worried? So That's a thought too.
From the BBC World Service, this is Stumped on All India Radio.
Next on Stumped, it was a landmark week for the England women's team as they became the first professional female sports team in the UK to return to training. A total of 24 players reported for duty at 6 regional centres to follow individual regimes devised by head coach Lisa Keightley.
We've got 6 hubs around the country. Obviously, accommodation and hotels aren't open yet, so we're trying to get the girls close as they can to be training at home, so to speak. So 6 around the country. Our biggest hub is Loughborough. Obviously, with a lot of the training being there in the past, a lot of the players have moved up in around that area. So we've got 11 there. We've got 6 in Surrey. We've got 1 at Hove, 1 at Bristol, 1 up at Headingley, and 3 at Lancs. And I think that was the 6th. Coaches at all the venues and physios and S&Cs. And we started yesterday and our first session done. Everything went really smoothly and it wasn't too much of a inconvenience with all the distancing and all that. We're lucky we're outdoors in a net. 1 coach, 1 player at this stage at a time, and it worked really well. And I think the girls were, you can imagine, really excited to hit a ball and catch a ball and get into the cricket skills. So far, with a lot of work behind the scenes for the players to rock up, train and then go home.
The question in women's cricket has been raised again during some ICC webinars as to whether the women's game would benefit from a couple of measures, namely shortening the pitch or using a slightly lighter ball. And the ball is already slightly lighter and smaller than the men's game, for example. What's your position on the pitch specifically?
We have trouble sometimes getting on good wickets as it is. By shortening the pitch, I think it would make it even harder. So there's a knock-on effect. And the other thing is, like, I think it would change the game and the history and the stats and everything. You could go so many places on, you know, if you shorten the pitch, do you have the same stats? Do you have the same, it's like T20 format. Do you put a line in the sand and now these are the new stats moving forward and that was the old one. So look, I think the more we're getting professional and the more athletes can train, they're getting stronger and quicker. And I think you'll get quicker bowlers coming through the women moving forward.
Gives something to aspire to, doesn't it?
Yeah, look, it'd be fantastic. We have had bowlers in the past in the high 120s, nearly 130, Catherine Fitzpatrick, Sharma Mason, Bronwyn Calver from the Australian side of things. So there has been really quick bowlers coming through and I think there's a wave of them coming through now. So I'm not a fan of shortening the pitch, to be honest. I think I'd like to see the players continue to get strong and robust and fit. And I think over time, the bowlers will get quicker.
Well, that's England women's head coach Lisa Keightley. Just want to pick up on that last point, Jim and Charu, on shorter pitches for women's cricket, because it's an idea that has been picked up and thrown around sporadically. I've never actually heard of a female player speak in favour of it until I heard India star Jemima Rodriguez talk in favour of it on an ICC webinar, just opening up the women's game to a bigger audience, essentially by making the ball come onto the bat better, quicker. But you know, Lisa Keightley saying there, the game is already evolving quickly with bowlers getting faster. And we've just had the MCG stage the biggest game of women's cricket ever before COVID hit. The T20 World Cup was the most watched women's tournament ever. So there can't be too much wrong, Jim, with the current product as it is.
An ageing ABC commentator a couple of years ago suggested in the presence of some very well-regarded, experienced former players who were female at a women's game that wouldn't it be a much better game if they shortened the pitch? Well, I was looked upon as a heretic. To me, it's the one disappointment about the development of the women's game, and it continues to develop and the athletes are getting better, is that the bat is a long way in front of the ball most of the time in women's cricket. The bowling, It just lacks something.
Well, Jim, I'm not for the first time. I tend to disagree only because I think the timing is all wrong. And, this would be a disastrously backward step psychologically because a lot of other popular sports, and popular, mind you, like, I don't know, football, basketball, in terms of court size, hockey, tennis, squash, many others, badminton, have very, very, have a great degree of similarity. The same size, and of course, the rackets may differ and so on and so forth. And even here, the ball's a lot lighter in cricket. But to indulge in any obvious reduction now, would be to admit that something is wrong. And, so we're trying to fix something in women's cricket because something is wrong. And I know you said you think it's wrong in terms of the bowling, but it would just be a backward step that might make a lot of people who are happy to become now new fans of women's cricket say, yeah, well, it wasn't quite right, and therefore it's being fixed. And what's the need to be bowling at 140 or whatever? I mean, if you bowl at 140, if the athleticism is increasing, then the pitch can remain the same. I mean, and also, of course, there's a lot to be said about the size of the arena. Because if you're trying to do or host mixed games, as may well, and as has been done and may well continue to be done in the future, you can't go around changing pitch lengths after one match for the next match. I mean, I can very quickly quote the world of kabaddi, which I'm very closely associated with, has a smaller court for women, traditionally. And when we tried to do women's matches along with the men's match, as a showcase in the professional league, all of a sudden there was a problem because then we couldn't go around shortening the court for the women. So we just made them play on a larger court. Now, they will get used to it, and I'm sure that the game will flourish thereafter as well. So I really don't think women's cricket needs to go backwards in now realizing something is wrong and then maybe shortening the length, because there's enough, I'm certainly interested in women's cricket the way it is right now.
My feeling is that the more ambitious approach for the women's game is to keep the pitch as it is and allow then generation of new women's cricketers who are going to be professional from the word go to do the strength and conditioning, and more of them to be building their strength and their pace and unearth again, a numbers thing as well. Women's cricket is more widespread. You'd think that create a wider pool of players at the base level. You'll probably unearth some quick bowlers who previously might have not even given cricket a second look. So be ambitious and create that space to move into. There's already the allowances made in terms of shorter boundaries. The ball is smaller and of a slightly lighter weight than the men's cricket ball. But ideas are all well and good. Well, before we go, Charu, you did flag this one up to us. Rahul Dravid has beaten Sachin Tendulkar to the title of India's greatest test batsman. So this is a poll by Wisden India readers, and Dravid, nicknamed the Wall, beat Tendulkar, who was simply nicknamed God, by 52% to 48% in a survey which involved more than 11,000 readers. So a close run thing. I mean, Dravid was a wonderful batter, but you know how the phrase goes amongst Indian cricket fans, Charu. Cricket is our religion, Sachin is our God. I've never heard the phrase cricket is our fortress and Dravid is our wall. Were you surprised by the result of this survey?
Well said, Alison. Yeah, I for sure. I think Rahul Dravid will be the first one. Nobody's talked to him. We haven't heard a comment from him yet, who would admit that, hang on, listen, I'm very happy to play second fiddle to Sachin because he was truly the god. But, maybe Rahul Dravid is a little more in the news right now because he's the chief of the NCA and the under-19 team, and Sachin's kind of moved off a bit and is not involved in the world of cricket anymore. I'm just looking for psychological reasons why people would remember Dravid as more or as a better batsman. There's no doubt that both were in a very, very high caliber. The whole persona of Sachin, because he started so young and played for 24 years and created all those records, is one matter. But if you're saying that the pundits, the connoisseurs, if they voted, then they may well say that Rahul Dravid was right up there. But above Sachin Tendulkar, that would be sacrilege in India, really.
Mm-hmm. Jim, if you could have either one in your team, who would you pick?
Well, I'd have to pick both, but Tendulkar would be ahead of Dravid, just on the number. A bit like Bradman's ahead of everyone else in this country. But for the eye, I would have a combination of VVS Laxman and the Nawab of Patowdy. Very exciting.
Good choice.
Charu, there was some sad news from India this week as well. Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Rajinder Goel from the north in Punjab, who played for many years for his state, the highest ever Ranji Trophy, our national championship wicket taker by miles, unfortunately expired a couple of days ago. Very fondly remembered by all those who are involved in the world of cricket and international cricketers as well. And one of the many tributes coming his way was from Bishan Singh Bedi, who was actually a little junior to Rajinder Goel, both left-arm spinners, of course. And Bedi admitted Goyal, or Goyali as he called him, was certainly better than I ever was as a left-arm spinner. That's a massive admission to make. But somehow, one of those strange things, Goyal never got to play for India, even though when Bedi once in a while was not available. Travesty of justice, really. And of course, in terms of style, he was a little flatter, very, very accurate. Accolades came in from every corner. Sunil Gavaskar mentioned that the best spinner I've ever played against, and so on and so forth. Very accurate, very tight. Some 640 or so, 635 wickets in the Ranji Trophy. Of course, many more in first-class cricket. But one of those strange things that such a wonderful man never got to play for India. Very disciplined, very dedicated, very committed. And of course, just a very quiet man too, never one to blow his own trumpet. So, yeah, he's no more, unfortunately. And, of course, the best part about his character really was the fact that a lot of people seem to think, I knew him, not very well, but I knew him, was that he never seemed frustrated or in any way deeply embittered at not playing for India, which is terrific considering how many years he played first-class cricket and could have walked into the team at any point of time. So a man of wonderful character, and unfortunately he's no more. I think that record of his is probably very unlikely to ever be broken.
Our sympathies go out to his family and all who knew him.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, that's it for this week's Stumped here on All India Radio. You can follow us throughout the week on Twitter. We're at BBCWS Sports using the hashtag BBC Stumped. Thanks to my co-hosts Charu Sharma and Jim Maxwell, and to you for listening. Make sure you join us again next time. Bye-bye.
Stumped is a BBC sport production for the BBC World Service in association with the Australian Broadcasting Corporation and All India Radio.